welcome to Talk It Out, where we talk it out. I'm Dury Rashad, and I'd like to thank you for being here. If you haven't had a chance already, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends, tell everybody about Talk It Out so they can maybe join us. Just to let you know or remind you, Talk It Out is supposed to be a safe space where people of opposing viewpoints can get together and have productive and healthy dialogue in a respectful way. Keeping in mind that it's not always about who's right or who's wrong. Sometimes it's just about listening and being heard. I'd like you all to give a warm, socially distant welcome to my panel for the night. First, let's start with my best friend, Emily Quarteroni. She's got a BFA in theater performance and a MA in American Studies, and she's currently pursuing her PhD in American Studies as well. We've got new to the panel. Everyone else is new to the panel, so let me roll out the red carpet. Joe Jones, who's got a master's in theology from Duke. He's also a social media marketer, and he's a father-to-be, so very congratulations to you. We've also got one of my friends from college, Meg, who's got a bachelor, Megan Dickens, and she has a bachelor's of fine arts in theater performance, and she's going to be her master's of arts in teaching, and she's currently an artist and a mentor, and she is also recently married. And Norman Hardiman, who's a community developer. He and I also met in college. Thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to have you. So how are you all doing? So at the beginning of the show, we like to do a check-in with everyone. So this is our chance to maybe talk about the things that are on your mind, talk about learn throughout quarantine, how you feel, protest, all those kind of things. So let's start with someone new. Let's start with Meg. Meg? Oh, she's muted. It's okay.
I've been quarantining as much as possible. Of course, the added pressure from circumstances with what's happening with the world, because it's not just in America, it's the world. So, you know, it is a lot of pressure also being in the house, but I try to get out and do yoga, and I started writing a lot more. So I try to channel that energy into positive things. And also researching. Yeah, doing a lot of research.
What kind of research are you doing?
Mostly history. Just really, I took an African American studies class my last year of college, and I just wanted to brush up on some of that information so I'm well informed moving into election time, as well as, you know, changing things that need to be changed.
Mm-hmm. That's good. It's good that you're doing your research. I think this is a time of awakenness, if that's even a word. Awareness, definitely, but everybody's waking up to a lot of things, and they're doing a lot of that research on their own instead of depending on people to tell you what to think about. And so I really appreciate that you're doing that right now. So let's hear from Emily.
So this is kind of the first point in the quarantine when I'm like really feeling sorry for myself, because my 10-year wedding anniversary is in like 2 weeks, and we had to, what?
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And because it's like such a big one, because it's 10 years, we had planned a trip, which we had to cancel. And so now we've been trying to like find just like a little B&B nearby to go away to or something, but like all of the amenities are closed. And I know it's just such a small thing compared to like what other people are going through right now, but it's been very sad and frustrating. Yeah, that's kind of it for me.
Yeah, I think it's a perspective thing, though. Just because there's worse going on doesn't mean that it doesn't impact you some kind of way.
Yeah.
Joe, how are you? Welcome to
Thank you. I am very tired. I'm extremely tired. The quarantine has been fine. I'm kind of a little bit of a homebody anyway, so like that part's been okay. I think I am very specific worries. I am concerned that we're going to rallies and that COVID is going to kill people, it's going to kill people who I want to live. I was fine. We were going through other people who wanted to get haircuts. But like the idea of people who are fighting for civil rights getting sick is a terrifying situation. I take a lot of solace in, this is going to be terrible to say, but it is the truth. Like people are hopefully increasingly less racist as time goes by. And so I need the ratio to stay what it is. I don't want to lose a lot of good people, but I'd love for a lot of like older people who were more racist to die and us to become more progressive in time. I'm also real upset that Donald Trump is doing a Juneteenth rally. It's just like I don't know what to do with the anger. It's like one of those things I keep cycling with the fact that like Obama set such a high bar for who could be president, and Trump has convinced me that like you need to be like anybody can be president, and so that part is just like you're so powerful but so dumb, and so I think it's scary and also just like disheartening. So I'm worried. I'm just real worried that he's going to keep stirring stuff up, and then more people will go to rallies, and then they will die of COVID, and then I will be left with a bunch of terrible people. Because I'm not going to rally because my wife is pregnant, and if she gets COVID, and she does not die, she will kill me. And if so, I'm trying to live and to vote for people who aren't Donald Trump so bad.
I know. I mean, I don't know how to like relate because of the family situation, but I definitely relate on everything you said about Trump and the Juneteenth, which I want to touch on that more. But let's hear from Norman first.
Yeah. So, COVID, and being right back into the civil rights era, as like you said, John talked about it, is kind of really brought things full circle. I work from home a lot, so I have a wife and 2 kids. Our kids are the same age; they're 2.5 years old, so they're always running around. So you guys may hear them if you listen closely at some point during our conversation. But no, it's been good to catch up with my family. Personally, I've just taken a lot of time for self-reflection and prioritizing what my goals are, where I want to go from here, and what I want to contribute to the world. Just kind of looking at the faces, I imagine we're probably most of us in our 20s or definitely 30s, or most of us in our 30s. We probably, hopefully, prayerfully have another 40 years to live, 40 to 50 years, and that's not a lot of time. So I've been doing a lot of deep thinking about that, challenging myself to get involved in my community. We've been here before with Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, and between there to Ahmaud Arbery and the 3 that we're dealing with now. And there's not been much change. And, I want to be part of the change. And so I have been out, rallying or protesting peacefully with my mask on. But I would be ashamed to my kids look back on this time and they say, Dad, what were you doing? Where were you doing this time? And I say, I wasn't able to be a part. So that's where I am. And those are the thoughts that fill my mind.
It's really interesting that you say that, because we've had a few guests on the panel who we kind of touched on it, and the more I'm hearing it be repeated, I think we really do need to dedicate a show to what we should be doing right now, because a lot of people feel like, oh, there's too much pressure, especially on Black people. If they're not actually protesting or they're this or that, then they're not doing enough.
Well,
Go ahead.
I feel like if everyone has their calling to where they feel as if they're needed. I've donated, I've signed petitions, and I think those are the things that can evoke change. Not saying that protests don't evoke change, because through history we see that it does. So I think if everyone makes a choice to be a part of change, that's what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's why I really, everyone who comes on the panel, this is a way of protesting. It's not so defiant in that it's like, but getting here, letting your voices be heard and showing that like this mix of people, and it's always a different mix of people, can get together and really vibe and talk stuff out. And so I appreciate y'all being here. But I agree, Meg. I feel like everyone has their pocket, because some people are more vocal, some people are more active, some people are more, some artists. I saw this video online. This dude did this dance to Strange Fruit by Nina Simone. And at the end of it, he's like surrounded in police tape. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many ways to get that message out. For me to check in, honestly, today I'm tired because I've been up doing things to get Woe Nelly up and running. Our website launched today, and we're open for business. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm also thinking about like the next stuff, and then so my head's all over the place. As far as my emotional state, I just got some weird news about an old educator of mine, which is just the whole thing. The article that came out about our department. Yeah. So I just read this. Our educators have been criticized very heavily about the way they treated some ethnic students. And I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can right now, but essentially part of me is like incredibly upset because I thought it was just me that was experiencing that. So I'm kind of dealing with that. But overall, I'm actually very happy. I feel super honored and blessed to have like the certain things that I have. This quarantine has helped me kind of put things into perspective, to be happy for the things that I have instead of dwelling on the things that I don't. So I actually want to talk about Candace Owens. The reason I want to talk about Candace Owens is because I just found out who she was literally a few hours ago. There was a post on Facebook and it had her picture, and I was like, who is this? I'm like, it's Candace Owens. And I thought, okay, I'm going to check it out. And I get why everyone knows who Candace Owens is. Okay.
I mean, are you going to post this someplace? Because I'm sure somebody does it. You should ruin their day.
Well, I can't post it like right now, but I mean, can somebody give me, because I'm not going to be able to explain, because I'm too new to it, explain Candace Owens.
Okay, so Candace Owens is a political commentator. She's highly conservative. She's extremely inflammatory. So I think if you think of her not just as conservative, but like known to like stir up drama. So I think of her more as like a Sean Hannity. But plot twist, she's young, she's Black, and she's female. And so she, in particular, is often retweeted and shared by white conservatives who are looking for Black people who give credibility to, not really credibility, they lend credibility, but it's almost like they it gives them a pass,
right.
Or gives them like a certain degree of like reinforcement that Black people believe this as well. Because I don't think it's coming necessarily from a place that she proved to the facts, but it comes from a place of a Black person did say this, and so then it becomes true. And so I think that is the role she plays. But I think she's really articulate. I think she's a very smart, thoughtful marketer. I think she's a terrible human being, and I think she knows what she's up to.
A terrible human being. Because this is what the thing.
I 100% believe she is.
I personally had no opinion of her, you know, when I watched the videos. And I watched like 2 videos, and I got the point really quickly. However, don't hate me for this. Some of the stuff she was saying made sense. Like, that's the thing. But I told my friend who posted it, I said, what she's saying makes sense. But where she shoots herself in the foot is that she's saying it to white people and not to Black people. Like,
What did she say? What did she say?
Her stance was basically, don't let the media bait you, because the way that they present a lot of this stuff is baiting. And I do agree with that. I do feel like the media baits some of these issues, especially for Black people, because they know it's triggering for us. But she's saying this to white people as if, look at what those Negroes are doing, kind of sort of thing, instead of saying it, if you really want, she's like, oh, I'm all for the community. I love Black people. If that was the case, you would be on like a whole different network, you'd be going to meetings at like Hot 97 in New York or the Breakfast Club. You wouldn't be at the RNC. Like, you would be talking to the Black community. And I feel like that's where she gets that reputation. So all of her valid points then get lost.
Oh, I think you just quoted something that's like credible, but like you can say a lot of things together and you can count it as cherry picking. I don't think she would have a platform. She's like saying credible things with you said those same things that she says at Hot 97. People just be like, there's no forum for people to listen to you here. There's other people who have a better like CV, so we'd be listening to them. It's the the two Black women who are also on Fox News all the time? They've just lost their show.
Two Black women who are on what?
They're Trump supporters they lost the show because they said they perpetuated the coronavirus is spread by 5G. I'll look it up for you. But my macro point is that I do believe it's true that when you have a unique background for any like pop media like spotlight, that you can bring that in, that you can add the diversity element. People are more prone to let you have the spotlight, and there's not as many Black people who are willing to say what she says. There's plenty of Black people who would love to come on Fox News. There are plenty of Black people who are political commentators. Those people aren't saying the things Candace Owens is saying. And so she is getting the benefit of there not being other people who have a better CV, who have proven and done more things. So she's new to the game, and she gets a spot because there's not as many people letting her do that. She's Ann Coulter, but Black.
Yeah, because somebody said, or like Tommy Lawrence. Do you think that so you said you thought she was a horrible person. Do you think it's that she's actually a horrible person, or do you think it's that she knows what sells? She knows, because you said she was inflammatory. So do you think this is just like to get a soundbite, to get a blurb, or do you think she really believes the stuff she's saying? Anybody?
I feel like she could be either of those and still be a horrible person.
Say what?
I feel like she could be either of those and still be a horrible person.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then everybody who says stuff for the media attention is a horrible person, isn't it?
Well, I don't think everyone is saying stuff that's like inciting hatred. I mean, I said like this because I'm not that familiar with her. I like just sort of know who she is, but so I don't know exactly what stuff she said, but I get the impression that like he was comparing her to Ann Coulter, that it's like pretty hateful stuff.
I mean, I didn't see it either. Norman, you want to say something?
Yeah, to a degree, I think she believes what she's saying, but I think that she has a lot of inner conflict that she's not addressing, because I like to listen to not only what a person says, but the place that they say it from. And the undercurrent that I hear every time she talks is, you Black people are dumb enough to be manipulated. You have no right to feel the way you feel, and I have the facts to back it up. And so that's the undercurrent I hear of every message that she speaks. And she's very technical in how she presents information, although I do not agree that all of her stats that she pulls are apples to apples. I think they are stacked in order to support her debate or her argument. And so those are things that I would love for her to be more realistic about, and maybe start to do comparisons, not just like for instance, the most recent is dealing with police brutality, and she talks about Black males, the crime rate among Black males versus whites.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to compare, Black males to somebody, let's compare them to another race. And yes, there is a disproportionate percentage of Blacks that are participating in violent crimes, but hello, you can't stop at numbers. You have to do a deep dive into the numbers and figure out what's going on. It's just like if you have a business and you find out that there's a leak in one of your expenses, it's not enough to say, okay, hey, we're out of balance 20% in our administrative costs. No, you do a deep dive to find out why. And I feel like a lot of times she really talks about those facts, and her conclusions are, with Black people, if we want to address these percentages, then we need to come up as a people. And so I think that's too surface level, because what that shows is what that says to me is, um, you act the way something about your skin color or about your heritage or your culture dictates to um, you being criminalized. And I disagree with that. I think people are people, regardless of what your skin color or your cultural heritage is. I think if people are acting out in a way, we have to really do a deep dive into diagnosis. Now, if that's not her field, that's not her field. But I would love for her to take more of a position of informing. I have no conflict with her speaking her piece, using her First Amendment right. That's great. But speak your piece, and speak it in a way of being informative rather than bashful.
I agree. Megan, did you want to speak on this before we move to the next topic?
I did. I just want to comment on one of the things that Norman said. You said when you look deeper, you understand why things are the way that they are. And when she talks about, the violence between the Black community, she doesn't look at the facts of the criminal justice system and how there are a lot of people who come through that are people of color, who are Black people, but there are also white people who come through and get lesser charges or no charges at all for the same exact crimes. So I think if you take a deeper look at the facts of, like what Norman said, why is this happening? What is causing this fact or statistic that you're spewing?
That's actually like a very effective way I have found of like trying to talk to other white people about racism, where like they'll say something like that, like, well, look at like crime rates and stuff. And I'll say, well, why do you think that is? And if they can't answer me, then I'll be like, well, then maybe it's because you think Black people are inferior, you know? And it's like hard saying that to people sometimes, but I think that like, yeah, if people aren't looking at the why, then they think they already know why. And so even if they don't like consciously think that thought that like, oh, Black people are like more violent or whatever, it's still the logical sort of end of what they're saying. So yeah, like I said, I found that to be sort of effective to get people to talk to me.
I also think I want to point out, I like looked up her Twitter, like her last several tweets. I think it's worth noting. So what she says, I wonder if we're moving past the point of reconciliation with the left. Maybe we'd all be happier letting them pick a few states they can live in as their own country, with no guns, no police, no statues, no gender, no flags, no men, and no electricity. The United Freaks of America. Quote tweet. So her follow-up tweet after this is, they can pick a trans, non-binary, queer to be their president before Antifa and Black Lives Matters burns down their White House for being white, of course. First one I run into. If you need even any more evidence in support that Black Lives Matters is a trash organization that has nothing to do with Black lives. Thank God for our police officers. Now, those obviously, like those are inflammatory. We've covered that. The other thing,
inflammatory. Oh my.
Yeah, and I from my perspective, I work in marketing, right? Like you also know who your customers are. When you produce a certain degree of like commentary, certain people show up. And so the other thing is, even if she was genuinely of these opinions, the people who gravitate to her and really retweet and share oftentimes are not just people who are looking to use certain like posts, but the vast majority of her folks are full out crazy, right? And so I think people are cherry picking her best arguments and sharing them with Black people to say like, look, this is that. But if you dig a little bit deeper into her actual like ongoing commentary, it's so full of vitriol. It's so mean. And I'm just not convinced she doesn't know, based on who her audience is, that she's drawing out some of the worst people.
that blows my mind because like I said, I watched like 2 videos and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But what you just said, oh my goodness, like inflammatory is not even the word for it. That's just like, she literally put down like 50 different groups of people in like less than 10 words, it felt like. That's
I'm not gonna lie though, she had me in the beginning when she, no gender, no men, no, I
she
can't,
wasn't saying it
whatever. I was kind of like, I would move there.
she wasn't saying it in a way. She was clearly like, I'm gonna say sarcastic because that seems like too light of a word. She clearly was
condescending.
Say it again.
Yeah, I know she didn't mean it. I was just saying.
I would look. Yes.
To me, like when I look at stuff like that, it really, because I guess for me, it's all about like, how can you hate somebody that much who really doesn't do anything to you, right? So actually, we had a guest on here before who brought up the crime thing about like, oh well, black people are commit more crimes in this country, and then Emily's response was, black people are convicted of more crimes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what's crazy is that that's what little white kids are taught. I don't want to say it in a negative because I don't know. I'm not little white, but my understanding is they're taught, or that's what's they're built stuck into their head is like, oh, black people are just criminals because they're 50%. They're not taught. Oh no, black people get convicted of more crimes, but we're not considering how they get arrested. We're not considering that. So then they grow up into these adults who don't realize that they have this racist notion in their head. So when you tell them that they're racist, they're like, what? Because now they've had this thing stuck in their head and they're like, but I'm so nice. I have a black friend. I'm not racist. I don't hate you. But to explain to them, it's not that you're hateful. By calling you racist or saying that you do racist things, I'm not saying that you're hateful. I'm saying that you've been taught these things that you can't overcome. Well, not that you can't overcome, that you have to identify before you can overcome. So there's that. So this kind of brings me to the next point about Starbucks. So over the last 2 days, literally one day and then the next, Starbucks had a ban put on, what is it? They had a ban put on any clothing or apparel that said Black Lives Matter. They basically put out a memo to the whole company, said you can't wear that. And apparently the backlash that they got from Twitter was so intense because people felt like, well, you let us wear pins and everything for LGBTQ, for Pride. Why can't we wear for Black Lives Matter? Apparently the memo, it was about like the company memo basically saying like, oh, we can't get involved in politics or we can't get involved in this or that and the third because, we shouldn't be making those kind of statements, which I don't disagree with that. Like if as a company, if you don't want to make a political statement, you have that right. But basically by standing by the gays and not standing by the blacks, that doesn't add up. So then the next day, which is a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, it took the NFL like what, 3-4 years. The next day they came out and they said, you know what? We see that we made a misstep and wear your Black Lives Matter. As a matter of fact, we're going to manufacture Starbucks Black Lives Matter shirts and send them to you. So here's my question. Do y'all feel like that was a good thing, that the turnaround was so quick and a sign of change? Or do you think it's still just a like, oh my God, people are mad, let's fix this? So do you know what I'm saying? Like, are we seeing permanent change or are we just seeing a lot of ass kissing? Excuse my language.
I think that it's not genuine.
Why?
Well, I mean, I feel that way, capitalist. So I kind of don't really ever think. I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that most of our society, money talks, and that's the motivating factor is money. And so now, not only are they going to be able to keep the money that they almost lost because people aren't going to boycott them anymore, they're going to make more money because they're making merchandise. I mean, like, it's pretty, I don't plan to ever go there again because I feel like they showed their true colors and now you can't undo that.
So you don't think they were, so you feel like by saying, okay, y'all can't wear Black Lives Matter stuff, they were taking a stance against Black Lives Matters? Or do you think they were just scared to make a statement? You know what I'm saying?
I think it was about money. I think that they were worried that it would isolate their customers and would make people not want to go there and stuff like that. And they cared more about that than they did about taking a political stand because they're not, I mean, companies are made up of people but like companies aren't people, even if we treat them that way legally. Like they don't have values and morals and things like that. Like,
What about Ben and Jerry's?
well, I think it's those two guys.
Is the whole company?
I mean, who knows what all the employees of Ben and Jerry's think? We know what Ben and Jerry think, but I mean, like the CEO of Starbucks, who knows what that person thinks? I don't know who it is, if it's a man or a woman or what, but I don't know. I think it's all about money, and I don't trust any of it.
Well, so I have I'm gonna leave my work undisclosed. If you do the work of figuring out what I do, where I work, then congratulations. But I work for a company, and my specific role, I work for the CEO. That's all I do all day. I spent the last 2 weeks crafting messages from our company that are public to be able to address these types of issues. And I know they care. Where I think it gets weird is that, so I'm very I'm pro-black and I'm pro-fiasco, right? So we're gonna start a fight. I love a good fight. But I don't come for money. And so I think the reality is, for me, a lot of times, I think if I get us to go all in, burn it down, and we don't have customers anymore, a shot, and we don't get to stay in the game, right? So there's a degree of this that I want us to make very bold statements, to come out and do those things and take a stance. But at the same time, I think that there's a degree of freedom I have to be able to say, how do I have our thousands of employees feel backed and supported? How do I say that we stand for something? And how do I not convince this crazy amount of racists to stop giving us money so I can use that money against them? And so I want to have one big moment where we said, we don't need any of your money, but the real answer is, I want all of your money, and I want to use it against your crazy plan to not have equal opportunity jobs. So I don't think companies as a whole have a bunch of hearts, but I do think there are people in really powerful positions who care. I know a bunch of rich liberal. I mean, my boss is a very rich liberal white dude who I don't think he knows how bad racism is, but he would like to stop it. Would like to stop it. I don't know if he'd give it up for all of his money, but he would like to stop it and be rich still. And so as long as I don't make him fully broke, I think he's willing to entertain taking more and more risks. And so I think we care. I think it's just.
Do you care that, does he care if he's not willing to make any sacrifices? Is that real caring? I don't know.
I mean, what do you mean though?
Everything?
Yeah.
Do you have to sacrifice everything to be considered caring in that sense?
Everything? No. But I mean, in this situation, we're talking about money, and I'm just saying, he just said that he doesn't think that he would necessarily give up being a rich person. And right. I think that, the problem of racism is a way bigger deal than any one individual being rich.
I don't think he can fix it. That's the thing. I think he could make a big stance. Serena Williams has been stepped off the board, right? That's a big move. I don't think he wants to be CEO of his company. I don't think he's gonna be stepping down, and I don't think and I know for a fact we're not just throw black people onto the board. But I do know that in his woke realization, he is genuinely committed. We were talking about this a bunch, too much because I'm not that good at this, but I am one of the few black people he knows that I have direct access to, and I'm gonna use it to push him in that direction. And I know he's beginning recruiting at a level that's far beyond mine. He's hiring headhunters. We're gonna get people onto our boards and onto our leadership, but it's gonna take a while. And he's gonna do that, but I don't think he's gonna, I don't want him to make a move that's so bold that we replace him with another rich white dude who isn't as inclined to actually do that work. And so there's I am wrestling with it all the time because I would love to cover, to throw him just general cover and be no, he's great. He wants to be rich, but he's also, I'm watching him do this work to bring about change in places where we've been all white leadership for a long time. And he did get woke enough to say, I didn't recruit, I didn't develop, we have this problem. I admit that, and I am going to put the steps in place to change that. And that is, a year ago, I also wouldn't quit my job, but I would have been so shocked to hear him say those words and make that directional change. But I think it.
Go ahead. Meg, I'm
No, that's it.
So just, this is a question to anybody, but specifically I want to ask Meg, like, so when you consider the people who are in the position that Joe's just talking about, like a guy who recognizes change, wants to change, but has their stuff to lose, do you think that that's part of why we saw it took so long for people to come to terms with stuff? And like, if this was a year ago, Starbucks wouldn't have even done it so quickly?
I think throughout history, we've seen the support of African American people be silent. And I think when it comes to them expecting now for there to be silence, it's been too long. Like it's been way too long. And for boardrooms to exist, I've been the token in a lot of circles, whether it's performances, school, and being the token, I don't like that you look at me as if, oh, let me ask you this because you are Black. Because for me, it makes me feel even more of an outsider. I already acknowledge the fact that I don't look like you. Mm-hmm. I already acknowledge the fact that you treat me differently because I don't look like you. So I think when you have those people who are at the top and they can open the door to have more people that look a variety of different ways, that it's more diverse, it causes change and it causes growth. So if you are in that position and you don't do anything, pretty much think, you need to be replaced with someone who will do something and who will make a change.
Basically, shit or get off the pot.
Right. And most of the time, CEOs are usually in those positions until they die.
But CEOs, I think in order to become a CEO, you have to be that type of person anyway who can make a decision, stand for something. And so it is interesting to me that now that that's happening, I think that's going to happen in every market. Now there's been this shift in recording. Now it's like, okay, you're accountable. So what are you going to do? And people are looking at people a little differently. So having said all that, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about these new changes that people are coming? Because we're getting backlash from all this kind of stuff. Has anyone heard about the new move to get the Wayans brothers to apologize for white chicks? Yes. Yeah, I just saw it online. There's this, it was an article saying that like there's been some backlash and everyone's saying, so now that we're gonna do this whole like Black Lives Matter, let's not be racist anymore, we want the Wayans brothers to apologize for doing white chicks. And they're trying to compare it to blackface. And the article's basically saying like, if you don't understand how blackface is not the same kind of sort of thing. So do y'all think we're gonna see like more stuff like that happen?
I'm confused. Is this coming from conservatives?
I'm assuming so. I didn't check who it was coming from, but I guess it was online that these people were saying this kind of thing.
Then yes, I do think we're going to see more of that.
Really? You don't think I think it's going to get squashed pretty quick. I think I don't think people, because there's not enough examples of that, really. That's really the only one.
Of whiteface?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean just stuff that's like that specific. I mean, I think there's in general going to be a lot of things that people are going to be like, well, why are there like Black fraternities, and I mean, anything where white people can make the argument that they're being excluded, even though of course the reason why there are Black fraternities is because Black people were excluded from white fraternities.
I was going to say thank you.
But yeah, I mean, being around the white peoples like I am, I hear a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of those arguments frequently.
And
also, I'm also down. Like, apologize for white chicks. If you like, I don't care if this is a Black Lives Matter, like all lives matter argument. I will say yes to your thing every time. If you will shut up and we can move on to the thing I'm trying to talk about. Like, yeah, white chicks is problematic. Maybe Black people shouldn't paint themselves as white people. Cool. Y'all gonna be down to never do blackface again? We're good. Let's go. Why are we talking about this?
Right.
Like, this is, yeah. I don't like, all those arguments, I'm always like, stop it. Just stop talking to me about this because I will agree with your thing. Let's go.
Okay, I agree. All right, so what our last
I'm
so
with you, Norman.
sorry, it's okay. Our last current events topic, I want to talk about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, and I want this to kind of lean into our main topic for the night, which is going to be: is America truly a Christian nation or a nation of free religion? So basically, considering the way I got to this thought process, the way I got to this idea was through the thought process of, okay, so we're having all these people talk about their morals, and their morals are the reasons why they are anti-abortion and they're anti this and that. So my thought was like, you're anti all these things that aren't in line with Christianity. I'm sorry, with your morals. Why is it that you are okay with being racist? So, or discriminatory at all. So J.K. Rowling, who is literally someone who has paved the way for children, for little kids to believe in themselves, to grow up, came out and basically said, I'm gonna quote what she said. Basically, she was responding to a researcher named Maya Forstater, who was fired. And I'm guessing the lady was fired because I didn't get her quote, but the idea was that she said that, sex is real, gender is gender, and you can't, change your gender just because your identity. And there's a difference between identity and sexuality, which is a whole another conversation. But J.K. Rowling's post said, dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you, live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. And that was in December of 2019. Now, recently she posted again and basically said, in reference to a post that said people who menstruate, she said, people who menstruate, I'm sure there used to be a word for these people. Someone help me out. Wumben, Wimpund, Woomud, basically making fun of the idea, right? So, and Glad basically came out and said that in this day and age, there's no reason for you to make those kind of comments. Like, if you don't agree, you don't have to make those kind of comments publicly, especially when you're someone who made $1 billion off of children who probably are trans or gay and all these other things. So Daniel Radcliffe came out and spoke out about it and basically saying she shouldn't say things like that because women are women. It's about gender identity, not necessarily how you feel or whatever. So my personal belief is that, yeah, you don't have to agree with everything everybody does, but you don't have to spread hate at the same time. So I kind of want to know how you feel about that and how that relates to our society and the morals that our society is founded on. Anybody can go. Norman, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll jump out there. So just so you guys know, my foundation, I am a Christian, and everything for me comes through that filter because that's my life experience, and I'm not apologetic about it, but I just want to let you guys know what you're hearing from. I think in today's society, you're right, Duryea, that was uncalled for, a comment. We know that, we have disagreements. We're not all going to agree about the same thing. But I think we all deserve those constitutional rights. One of the things for me that's a big concern, and this is something that I'll open up when it comes to diversity, period, is how soon we expose children to new material. If I'm taking my child to public school and they are learning about, or part of the curriculum and experience is that they learn about world religions, they learn about, and excuse me, I don't, if I say the terms wrong, but about gender choices and you choose what you want to be. I don't want my child to be introduced to all of those things at that age. I want them to be very aware of the world that they live in. I don't want them to turn a blind eye. But that's for instance, one of the reasons I like separation of church and state is because rather than having a full-on curriculum where everything has to be taught, everything has to be shown, that you can say, you know what, let's take some time to introduce this information. So in practicing my freedom of religion, I think that is a compromise that allows people to feel that they can continue to uphold their religious freedoms without encroaching upon someone else's freedom of speech or expression.
So you're of the mindset you'd rather religion not even be spoken of in the school, or because that's not their place, the school. I'm just trying to make sure I understand you. Basically, you
Yeah,
use your child to those things. You don't want that to be something that's decided for you by the state or the school.
But it's how you
right.
identify religion,
Right.
Um, I,
or is it being human?
I think the issues are similar, because I feel like the people who have an issue, personally, I feel like how you identify is not necessarily religious, no, but the people who generally have a problem with it come at it from a religious standpoint.
Well, I was raised in the church, PK all day. Love my father. Him and my grandmother, she's passed on now, but they were very influential in my growth with Christ and my growth just in life. And one thing they always told us was to love. So love is a big part of being Christian. And it doesn't matter if I loved, whoever. It's just practice love and loving who you come in contact with, because the world already puts out enough hate. And if the church or religion or whatever your institution, whatever your way of worshiping is, if they're practicing, we're not going to talk about this, I'm pretty sure kids see things before their parents even realize, what they're learning about. And a lot of times kids are more aware than their parents are of what's happening and what's going on. They're very honest. And I think when you try to shelter them from certain things or try not to have them gain certain knowledge, it can sometimes hinder the way they think and also alter the way they're able to love others.
Right. And I mean, that argument makes a lot of sense to me, because it's like, I feel it both ways. I have a lot of friends who have children. I don't have any children. And I get the idea, because my best friend, she's very, 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 very straight about it. Chantress. I have a lot of best friends, and we get like this all the time. But she basically has like 4 kids, and she's a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful lady, but she's very into the church. So, and now I forgot what I was about to say. And see, man. Yes, I got it. So the idea is like this: I feel like you should be able to raise your children how you decide to raise your children, and that's kind of what I'm hearing Norman say. But what I'm hearing Megan say also, and correct me if I'm wrong, is basically like, but by hiding things from your children, especially when they're going to be introduced to them, you run the risk of letting the world teach them about it before you can. And
in education, the classroom is full of students who are you're going to raise your child the way you want to. So when they come to class, it's, you see the bullying, you see you're going to hell, you see the hate. And those are the things that, as an educator trying to do crowd control when there's so many different opinions and it's being addressed in the class anyways, instead of having it being controlled and spoken about by someone who's educated about it.
So do you think, go ahead.
And just to bring a little balance to my statement in the beginning. So there are a lot of things that I want to introduce to my children that I have not introduced yet. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got 2. They're 2.5 years old.
Oh, okay. They're twins.
Yeah, so they're twins, yes, sir. So I've got a boy and a girl, and we have not introduced our kids to profanity, because a 2.5-year-old, they're gonna say any and everything that you say. You're right, and so we just don't allow that in our house because we want them to establish other words. We need to expand their vocabulary in other ways. They've seen kissing on TV. They've seen me and my wife kiss, and they understand the context of that. You You kiss daddy on the cheek, you kiss mommy on the cheek, we let them kiss each other. So we have those conversations. I think to that point, I think the society will beat you to the punch on educating your kids in some things. You're not going to be the first one to educate your child in everything. And no parent is perfect. You just do the best you can with the remnants that was given to you from your parents and from what you learn and continue to learn. And so it's not that I want to shelter my kids from things. It's just that I don't want them to go into a school environment where everything is available, because we live in a society where if I make my belief and my freedoms available in the school system, in the public school system, then you ought to have that same right, whether you believe whatever you believe. And so personally, I just feel that that's not the place for it. If they have a student or a teacher that does express themselves as being transgender, then let's talk about that. But I think a great part of parenting is being involved in your child's education. So when you walk into the classroom, you can assess and say, okay, I may need to have this conversation so they can understand some differences and be able to respond appropriately. So some of those things we'll just have to adjust to once we get there.
Anyone want to comment on that? I saw some movement. You want to say something?
The only thing I wanted to say was, obviously 2.5, that's super young. So I don't blame you for not talking to them about that kind of stuff yet. I don't have kids, and I hate even speculating about what I would do if I were a parent, because I feel like you really probably don't know until you're in the situation. But I just want to advocate a little bit for kids know that they don't fit the gender that was assigned to them very young, and they do drugs, they commit suicide, all kinds of terrible stuff happens when trans people don't. I guess I just feel like it's one of those things where if one of your kids ends up being trans, they'll probably function better the earlier that they're made to feel that it's okay that they don't identify with what's being pushed on them. But they're not necessarily going to bring it up because they don't know that it's a thing to bring up.
Or that they're safe bringing it up. And it's not a personal thing. I think it's okay, but I think for some people, and I'm just being the devil's advocate here, I think for some people who would make the argument of, I don't want to talk to my kids about that, it's okay, I don't mind if my child comes to me and tells me that they're gay or trans, but I also don't want to promote that necessarily because it goes against my personal beliefs, which is also fine. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's...
Well, what I'm saying is that I think it could be mentally harmful to the child. If like I said, 2.5, way too young.
Right,
but, once a kid gets to be 5 or 6, they probably know if they don't fit. And I think that...
I think I'm super liberal. My kids, I have no problem. I would be the person who would let their kids know about sex as soon as they could understand things. I don't want to encourage them to be having sex. I think I'm happy to tell them how babies are made, but I think their puberty exists. I don't think they're gonna be all right, now I know I can have sex. They are going to be aware of knowledge that they don't feel compelled to, unless there's actual abuse happening in the home. There's things that I think keep kids, right? I don't think knowledge makes them adults immediately. But I do think we broached this a little bit, that the filter through which people look at the world does define humanity for them sometimes, right? That's real. And so I think if you bring your definition of humanity through a religious lens, there's a certain degree that you just don't think you are doing damage to your kid's psyche, right? And I'm again, if my kid turns out gay, my kid turns out trans, I literally just don't I don't want to be honest, I wouldn't want to do the work. I want to have to do the work of being we got people are dicks, so now we're gonna have to deal with these people. But if you're trans, I don't care. I just hate people. And so that's I'm in. You're my kid. I'm black. People been assholes for a long time. Let's go. But I think that it's also, I don't fully understand. Like when I look at the science and I look at the studies, and I, as the most liberal person in the world, who I don't care if it's like real or not, I would be like, still, you can be trans if you want to, because you can do whatever you want. I think that it is true that for some people, there's a room to just say like, I don't know, like giving them room to say, I don't know. And not just that they're like just abusing their kids. I think if your kid shows up and they're gay and you are religious, there is a difference in, I'm gonna like disown you, I'm gonna treat you bad, I'm gonna contribute to your mental, your lack of mental health. I'm gonna damage your mental health. Or I'm gonna say like, I don't get down with this, but I am making space for people to exist in the world that does not require me to be abusive. And I think there's a spot that like we just didn't get, or we don't often get, because the world lives in these like antitheticals, where like you just don't have to send your gay kid to like reconvert their brain, and you can use room for you to also still be like, I don't know if I don't believe in gay people, but I also I'm just gonna make some space. I'm gonna make some space for me to be wrong, for you to be wrong, and for us to not actually go to war in our home, and that to guarantee we will damage ourselves and each other.
It's interesting to me because you bring up the conversion therapy. I told my mom what that was recently, and she was kind of like floored by like, that's a thing, like, and I was like, yeah, but I saw a television show once, and there was a guy on there, he was an adult, and he was kind of traumatized at one of those conversion camps, and he was telling his mother, sent him there, how it affected him, and she was so torn up about it because she didn't send him there out of hate, didn't realize what she was doing. And that's the thing that's interesting about it. And so I guess my question really came from, not necessarily, and I'm glad we had that conversation, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are gonna be parents and they need to hear what y'all just said. It's not even just about trans and identity and religion, it's about whoever their child decides to be. It's some people out there who their child wants to be an artist, and they're like, no, you can't do that because you're not gonna make any money, you have to go be a CEO. So I think it's what I'm really wondering about, because J.K. Rowling wasn't talking to her children, she was talking to everybody else's kids. You feel me? Like where she was. Her followers are who? You know what I'm saying? She was saying this online on Twitter. Her followers are generally like, I mean, most of us, we started reading her back then, but there's probably still little kids who watch Harry Potter, read those books. She was talking to those kids, and you're teaching those kids hate. So, and I think that comes across in our society as Americans, where we take our morals, you know what I'm saying? We take our beliefs, even though this is supposed to be a nation of religious freedom, we take our specific beliefs and force them onto others as if this is right.
Well, I think we try to justify the hate with religion. We try to justify the fact that, like, looking at slavery, yeah, they had slaves learning the Bible and using scripture to keep them mentally enslaved. So it's, when you're looking at how our country even started, they used religion to enforce the hate. So, of course, some of those lines are blurred.
I think that I saw Harriet. Did anyone see Harriet recently? It was actually really good. I only went to see it because I'm tired of seeing slave movies, I'm not gonna lie. But I only went to see that one because they advertised it as like the story of an American legend, the story of an American hero. And I like that because that's what she was. She wasn't just a slave. She was an American freaking hero, dude. She was like one of the first women ever to lead, to command a freaking, I should know this word, what's it called? Command troops, basically, for America. You know what I'm saying? And she's Black, which is something I didn't know until I saw that movie. Anyway, so I saw the movie, and one of the scenes at the very beginning is them, exactly what Megan's saying. They were at church. They were standing up on the in front of the plantation house, the mansion or whatever, and the sermon was, doing this. He was the Black guy. The white guy was standing right behind him. He was basically saying, he was reading because he was the only one who could read. Nobody else could pick up the Bible and read nothing. And he was saying it basically, because the Bible says this. So if y'all run from master, you're not going to be good Christians. She's absolutely right. So me and my friend I was just telling you about, we had not an argument, a debate I feel like this country was intended to be one of free religion. She felt like, no. They just didn't want to be the religion that they were in England, but they did want this to be a Christian nation. She feels that to this day, this is a Christian nation because that was what it was intended to be. The religious freedom thing wasn't saying all religions can come here. It's basically saying, we don't have to do that England religion anymore. We're going to do our own thing. And so that's where the topic came from to me.
Well, what's the evidence for this?
She's so smart, dude. I didn't have the evidence. So she literally went in scripture. She was talking about, and I asked her to send me some of it. Let me see if she responded to that message. But she basically was talking about the Constitution and certain ideals.
Well, there's a difference between saying that the Constitution was inspired by the Bible or by Christian values and saying that the founding fathers and mothers like intended for the country to be Christian. Because I mean, honestly, if they intended that, why didn't they put it in there?
Well, but she says because they were Christian.
They weren't,
Right.
though. None of those
They
men
were
were Christian. They were deists.
They were Puritan.
Puritans.
Puritan.
Thomas Jefferson wasn't a Puritan. He was deist.
There also are more of them.
Education.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that. Well, I don't agree with you completely, but some of them are deists, and some of them are like devout Christians. It's a lot of people.
So help me understand, because some of these words I do and some of these words I don't. So what's a deist?
I'll let him explain since he has the masters.
Right.
So deist is let me think of the best way to explain this to you. Deist is like a concept of a higher being, like a deity, but it's open and broad.
Okay.
Whereas like a Christian or a Muslim, those religions go so far as to give you like specifics around this is the person of God, or this is a triune God. Like they do all of that work. Deism theoretically it's left more open, more broad.
What is the
so Thomas Jefferson would be like he believed the Bible was inspired by like a God-like being, but he also felt comfortable. He said he didn't believe in the inerrancy of Scripture, and he thought he could interpret it better than a number of other people had interpreted it before, right? And so there's like a different like approach to how you think of the being of God. It's just a general deity.
So what is the difference between deism? Is that what it's called? Deism, mm-hmm. and agnosticism?
An agnostic person is usually they are apathetic and somewhat like open to the idea that God exists, but they don't. But the proof hasn't gotten them there yet. Whereas like a true atheist would be like, I do not believe in God. An agnostic is like, maybe.
Yeah, like I identify as agnostic. And basically,
I don't know if I do anymore.
Well, basically, I believe that you can't prove there is a God. You can't prove there isn't a God. Right. We just don't know. And so I'm not trying to take a stance.
Yeah.
I feel
the deist is like, there's a God.
Right.
But I'm not sure he's that one or hers, but it does exist. I am sold on it and I'm trying to figure it out.
And like, now correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't a lot of the founding fathers like of the clockmaker theory?
Clockmaker?
You mean watchmaker? That like there's a watch exists in a field. It's an old evangelical approach to explaining the existence of a God. So if you're walking around in the forest and you find a watch is a very difficult thing to make. Nobody accidentally makes a watch.
Right.
And so you assume when you find a watch that there was a maker of the watch. And so humanity existing, I think there's room to make the argument that like this will also
the watches.
Okay, so that's different than what I was thinking of, because I was thinking of this whole theory that a lot of deists, that there's a lot of overlap with deism and this sort of, I guess, I was thinking it was clockmaker's theory that God like creates the clock, winds up the clock, and then lets the clock go and is not involved in our lives in any way.
Okay, but then when you talk about the things, because I read the message she sent me, she basically says that it really has more to do with policies that are being made today. Conservatism, is that right? I don't know.
Conservatism is the thing.
That's the word. Look, I don't got no masters, okay? So when you talk about conservatives, they're trying to make policies based off of the Bible as if this is what's morally right. This is what our country was guided on because our leaders were Puritans are Christian, correct? Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
to a degree.
And my friend's idea was basically because they were trying to make this society, America, which was based upon a set of morals that these men had. And because these men were Puritan, without even wanting to be Christian, they innately created Christian policies. That's her theory. It's basically, and honestly, I get what she's saying. I feel like, but they weren't saying that those policies had to be so rigid that we could never get past them. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
But does it mean we're a Christian nation then? Because just because you say you're a Christian doesn't mean that you're a Christian.
Well, but is that showing up in our policies?
It's by practice.
Say it one more time.
I said it's by practice. So if you're not practicing love.
But do you feel, you could argue that there are plenty of Americans who practice Christianity.
Yes, but does that mean that we're a Christian nation? When you look overall, so looking at just right now in America, most countries, my father is Jamaican and my mother is American. So most countries look at Americans as this kind of like, but for right now with who we have in office, that position has shifted. It's not a thing of awe anymore. It's not we're not the best. We're not the best. We're not number one. We're not doing things that put, I guess, love out into what we're practicing.
I feel you.
It's hate. It's brutality. It's not love. And I feel like that's what Christianity is. It's love. And if we're saying that we're a Christian nation, how are we a Christian nation if we're not practicing love?
But you also have to take because I'm going to take what Joe said at the beginning. It's people out there real life risking their lives and their health to practice love right now. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, there are people, and I'm just seeing it from both sides. Because for me, I get exactly what you're talking about. It really sucks that a lot of the people in the world feel like he represents our entire country, because he does not. Like, he represents him and the people who believe him and think like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff about him that I think is very effective in how he and how he administrates, right? But those things are generally dealing with money, not his moral fabric.
Right, but then you look at the decisions that are made based off of, for example, COVID-19.
Right.
COVID-19, it's a pandemic and it's killing people. But rather than take proper precautions and moving forward, we're opening things back up. We're exposing people to this disease, and they're giving us guidelines to protect ourselves. I don't feel safe.
Right.
As an American.
And go ahead, Emily.
I don't agree with you about Trump not representing America. And this is coming from someone who studies America for a living.
Really, me? Is this payback because I called Trump my best friend? Is that
I'm just saying.
Let me hear what you gotta say.
If we were best friends, I probably would agree with you. But but no, seriously, like, obviously Trump doesn't represent every individual American. I don't think he represents me. But as far as like the overall values that our country has demonstrated over the centuries, I think he's a pretty good representation.
Really?
Yeah.
To her credit, I think we need to nail the whole time I was thinking, like, we as the country, slavery existed when these people were coming up with this plan. So like I think we gotta like frame it up to say that, like,
here's this though. I want to throw this at you in just response to what you just said. I read a book recently about good old Abe, right? And in that book, it was about his take on. Is everybody good? Is your camera frozen, Meg?
Oh, I think Megan is gone.
Okay, let me just take for a second. Yeah, so I read this book, and basically it was about the issues that led up to the Civil War. And the ideals in it, which was really interesting to me, I didn't realize that, Abraham Lincoln had always been anti-slavery. He didn't necessarily feel that black and white people should cohabitate, but
I was gonna say he was also anti-black people. So.
he didn't necessarily feel that black and white people should cohabitate. But he also didn't feel that any man should be a slave in captivity. And so his argument to that was, because he was one of those really, really gung-ho about the Constitution kind of people. And so he basically said that the forefathers made it clear in the Constitution or articles or everything that slavery was only to exist in the states where it already existed, and it was not to go past that. And his idea was that by putting that in place, eventually slavery would die out, because once the rest of the country grew and it didn't, it would eventually become like unnecessary. I say that to say, like, is it possible that even though it was a slavery, there was slavery going on while this was happening, while our country was being founded, that not everyone really was thinking like, the same thing about it?
It was always about money. Always.
And what is Trump about? You said it yourself.
Okay. I mean, I did say it. I'm just doing some, see, when you make Emily mad, you just got to get ready. Okay.
Mad? I don't know. Why do people always think women are mad when they get opinionated?
See, there you go. I'm going to step in that one.
And we're losing.
But I mean, okay, so the whole thing about it to me is we're talking about countries supposed to be separated from church and state, but you have this idea that this country has these underlying Christian values, whether we practice them or not. And then there's the question of, was it really so if money was always the incentive, why even make some of these values and these
to gain support, which is why they always mention religion, to gain support of those who are religious, because usually in history that's the majority.
Okay.
Those who identify as being religious or having a religion.
I do.
And I'd agree. Go ahead. Okay, I'd agree with a lot of that. I think it's really difficult to paint everyone with the same brush, because you do have people that were authentic in their faith, and then those are different people that started their different denominations and things like that. But you also had it's really no different from today. I mean, if you think about it from a standpoint of someone who's a Christian entrepreneur, that they have a faith that they ascribe to, but like when we talked about Starbucks or Chick-fil-A, at the end of the day, they are in business to make some money, and they are in business to make a profit. And the idea of slavery, if you really go back, of course, in America it was very brutal, but slavery was a worldwide viewpoint. Even back in Africa, tribes were enslaving other tribes in order to take territory. And all the tribes along the African coastline, Western African coastline, participated in the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I mean? So it's about business. It doesn't matter what religion you're a part of. It wasn't just the Christians. The economic standpoint of it has a lot to do with it. But I think their religious beliefs, the way that I interpret it, freedom of religion, had to do with religious oppression from England, which was passed down from the Pope. Because you think about the way that Christianity was spread, which don't get me on this soapbox, but Christianity was hijacked. When you think about Clementine, on his before he died, he was like, "Look, we're killing these Christians. It's costing us more to kill them than to let's just adopt this as a national religion, and let's integrate it with our Roman practices. And you know what? We're going to put these bishops in a room and let them come up with what the theology is, and whatever it is, we're going to put our military power behind it, and we're going to have these crusades to go all over the world. We're going to subjugate everyone to this belief system." And so there were a lot of series of wars, especially once you get into your factions of countries of like between Spain and Portugal, and when they start to fight over land, and that's really how a lot of this started. When they were fighting for new territory, they come into the Americas. England decides that they want a part of this, a piece of this pie. So I mean, the undercurrent is always going to be economic, but I think they didn't have the insight to the amount of diversity that we would have today in the 21st century. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like us trying to establish an economy for people that are going to be here 300 to 400 years after us. It's very difficult to do that because we don't know how the world around us is going to change. So I think that they formed the Constitution in a context that fit them, in a selfish way. So was it, answering your first question, was it Christian based on Christian values? Yes. But at the same time, no. You know what I mean? I don't think that was the motivating principle, was that, we want to be morally good. And so these are the inalienable rights that we want to present to only Christian people.
So when they say life, liberty, and because that to me is my favorite part of the Constitution. That is the Constitution, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's one of them documents.
It's the Declaration of Independence.
It's the Declaration of Independence, right?
I just know because I did the Schoolhouse Rock show and I sang the Declaration of Independence song.
I'm not a poli-sci person, so that's fine. I'm okay with being wrong. But in one of the documents that founded our nation, that was in there. Every individual has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So and that's the only reason I bring up that, is because I get what you're saying. Yes, it is. We definitely clearly live in a capitalistic society. We clearly live in a place, and you could argue that about the world, but here it's a lot more intense, where it's money, money, money. But
globalization, then yeah, it's the world. But for a long time, it was kind of us.
It was. We're honestly, let's be clear. We're super, super young. Super, super young as a country. Super young.
Yeah, we use it as an excuse a lot.
Oh, it's not an excuse. What I'm saying.
It is Western civilization. Like,
right.
We blame Europe. We get that in.
Like, Europe has had thousands of years to get their shit together. Thousands. And
I mean, technically, they got it together. They just, in the process, fucked everybody else up. But they got it together. That worked.
I just feel like this, and it's not to make an excuse. It's
not good, but it worked.
Did you look at a 6-year-old and expect it to behave like he was 30?
No, I agree. I think Norman just said something that I think is super interesting that I have not heard before, which is that they started a government with more freedom for choice than anyone else at the time was getting, right? The idea of democracy is still young, and they are religious people. So the idea that they don't have the foresight into what it will become, right, is something I think that's an interesting thing, because in that instance, they are doing both.
Say what?
All those men studied ancient Greece. I mean, they had some idea of what democracy looked like in reality.
Well, they're coming from monarchies, right? They have an idea of what democracy looks like. They have an idea of what they want to bring into a democracy of the people, not just of the rich, or some version of that, right? They want to increase the size of democracy, but they want to keep it under control to some extent. And at the same time, they are very influenced by their religion, and so they do both, right? They bring in the religion and they bring in the democracy, and then it grows in ways that they don't anticipate because it is so much bigger than what they made. And I think that is true. I mean, they're imagining colonies. They're imagining these tiny groups of people, and not even having the concept of what's happening in California at the time. I think those that is a foundation, is I think a really interesting thought. Instead of it saying, did they find this is a Christian religion? I think there's a bigger question, which is, did they understand Christianity in the way we do now? Because we live in a world post post the way we have experienced evangelicalism, right? Like there's manifest destiny is something we all kind of have been able to have an opinion about, but like that theory is built on the way to us now. So like for us to say like, oh, they're building a Christian nation that would bring about manifest destiny or live it out is like no, they didn't think of manifest destiny as an obligation because they weren't trying to take over the rest of the country yet. They were trying to stay alive in those colonies. And so I think we can round up when we look back and we try to justify our position with what they were doing. But it's reasonable to say that like you can't ask a person who can't fathom a car to also be making plans for planes. Like it is reasonable to say that like they founded it in their version of Christianity, and that version of Christianity didn't have space for our world. So it's hard to make it fit.
My question then is like, okay, that's actually, you're right. Norman's saying that. I never really thought of it like that. Like they never considered what it will become. And I'm sure there's certain things going on right now that the founding fathers would be like, oh yeah, we expected that. Other stuff they'd be like, no, bro, we had no idea that was right. So by that same token, does it make sense that certain things have taken us so long to get right?
But is it not the responsibility of those who are in leadership positions to change as we grow as a country? To make the people?
Say that one more time.
I said, is it not the job of the leaders to change and accommodate the laws for the people? When we look at our leadership is where America has kind of gotten lost, because we have some laws that are hundreds of years old. Like, throw them out. Right. They don't belong. So I think when you talk about, does it make sense that we're here? For me, it doesn't, because if you see a problem,
fix it.
You change it.
Mm-hmm.
Fix it, yeah.
I hear you on that. And I'll just look at things like, traditional, because when you talk about like devout Christians, I say the word devout, like people who, they kind of believe what they believe, this by the book, this by the book. I know people who believe Jonah was actually swallowed by a whale and sat in the whale's stomach for how did not become digested, didn't become food. So those people with those ideas, and I'm not challenging those ideas, but I mean, those people feel like women aren't supposed to wear pants because the Bible says that men shouldn't wear women's clothes and women shouldn't wear men's clothes. So those people who believe that and who also look at this country as one that was founded on these intense and unwavering Christian values, they're not gonna back off of that. And what it's basically become is people who say, we're in the moral right. Like you said, Megan, they've weaponized the religion. They've turned it into a reason to spread hate. But sometimes, and I think this is one of the hardest things for most people to accept, some people, when they're being hateful, aren't intending to be hateful.
I agree with you.
I don't know if that matters.
Huh?
I don't know that matters.
You don't think intention matters?
I do think intention matters, but I think like when you get down to like true hatefulness, Westboro Baptist, is that the one where they pick things? Yeah, like when you get to like that level, no, I don't think your intention matters anymore. Because I'm one of those people who really feels like what we do is a lot more important than what we think, because what you think doesn't affect anyone but you. But what you do is what affects the world. And like, I think that, yeah, people should consider your intentions when they're judging your actions if you fuck up. But like, ultimately, really, what you're doing is the bottom line.
Also, I think I thought this the whole time. Like, I think we may be asking a question on a false premise, right? Like, Iran would define themselves as a Muslim nation, right? Like they literally took the book and they were like, we're gonna make some laws by this book, and that is highly contentious. Like, there are different groups of people who call themselves Muslims who disagree on the way the Quran is interpreted. And so, they are going to war. Like, they've been fighting for a long time. And so I think that when you take a premise like a religion and attempt to define yourself as that at its core, you almost always are dealing with someone who is so close to or so far from the details that they're making a case based on their actual ignorance to the nuances amongst their own group who will argue. I mean, there's enough different versions of Christianity in America that you would be able to say that like the forefathers of our country can't be Christian, because if you really were Christian, you would have magically known that slavery was wrong. But the reality is that there are plenty of Christians running hard and fast in lots of ways, because the Bible doesn't, or I would say the Bible hasn't been, in my understanding, so empowered by the Holy Spirit that everybody got the same set of like rules, and they all went around and were like, this is all it is, got it and figured it out. Like what the concept of a religious nation has a false premise that requires us to believe that we can nail down the one Christianity, so those people can take that one Christianity and put it in place in a government, and that makes us now able to say that you have to do these things because those people back then also agreed with me. Like the premise is rooted in a thing that like is not possible and is not provable, because I could make the case that their version of Christianity just wasn't the real Christianity.
I agree so strongly, and you can take that so deep, because I mean, even like the Bible itself, you know, what is composed of were decisions made by humans of which like gospels they were going to take and which books and stuff like that.
But
and
try
so
explaining that to certain people, what you just said, try explaining that to someone, and someone you might think they're, I feel like everybody here gets what you just said, but some people, you cannot explain what you just said. So that's what they would say to that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, growing up Catholic and in Catholic school and everything, and of course the Catholic Church is the one who did all this, like we were definitely taught that those bishops and stuff were inspired by the Holy Spirit. So the decisions that they made are correct. And so we weren't supposed to question it. But of course, if you read some of the other gospels, they're fascinating, and they do I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but basically they paint a picture of a completely different kind of Christianity than one that you get from Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
That's the whole argument between people who talk like, there's this phrase I just kind of heard the last 2 years called the Old Testament God.
Mm-hmm.
And
definitely a phrase.
I understand what Megan, your face, do you understand what that?
So PK.
You said the Old Testament God?
Basically, they're saying that, you know, God in the Old Testament was different than the God in the New Testament. And I got the idea, and I mean, there's a lot of evidence to say in the Old Testament, he wasn't playing no game, you know what I'm saying? In the New Testament, it's all about mercy and, you know, and so, and I've always, when I was younger, growing up as a Christian, like my mom was Seventh-day, my dad was Jehovah's Witness.
You get no presents. You get zero. No birthdays, nothing.
Oh, no.
It might take other people's presents.
I live with my mama, though. I live with my mama.
Okay.
Look, that's what actually, just side note, that's when my grandma, she's the nicest woman in the entire world. When my dad converted to Jehovah's Witness and tried to stop Christmas from happening, grandma wasn't happy. Oh, them babies getting a gift. And we were her second and third grandchild. Oh, we doing it.
But Jared, do you remember that time that Mac and I gave you a Christmas present and you were like, what's this? We got you a Christmas present.
I just didn't expect it from y'all, you know what I'm saying? Because I ain't had nothing from y'all, so I didn't expect it, that's all. But basically, growing up in all these religions, I was so confused as to like which one was right or wrong. So I immediately questioned like, why are we going Sunday here? And why are we going Saturday here? So from a very young age, things didn't make sense. So when I always thought of the Old Testament versus New Testament, the way I always interpreted it was that whatever you can see God as is something or someone who can evolve and grow and change. You know what I'm saying? But try explaining that to someone who has this idea, this rigid idea. And I get what he's saying. He's basically saying in order to have a union or a nation that's founded on one idea or one religion, you have to have a unifying idea of what that religion means. this is Christianity, period. And we got Episcopal, we got Baptist, we got Methodist, Lutheran.
Pentecostal.
What'd you say?
I said apostolic Pentecostal.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that means, but but you know what I'm saying? And I never
Spirit filled.
Spirit filled.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Pentecost is when the fire came out of the mouths and everybody spoke in tongues. That's it. That's Pentecost.
Y'all, oh my God. I just have to tell you, in my ethnography class, we read a book about a snake handler and his church or whatever. And Jerry already knows that everyone else in my cohort is from another country. I'm the only actual like American in my cohort. And they were all like what? They're doing what? And they were like completely freaked out. And the girl from Russia, her name's Anastasia, she became like obsessed for a while with like Americans.
You found out about people flipping out at church?
Well, that was in the videos that we watched. People were doing that stuff too.
Like
speaking in tongues and yeah.
People still do they just don't do snakes. Some people do snakes. It's like a tiny, most 99% Pentecostal people
what are we talking about? I think I'm lost.
Snake handling.
So there's a
thing.
Yes. So Pentecostals believe in the Spirit in action. So speaking in tongues is one of the things, but also there's like, because the Bible's deep. So there's like a verse where it says that you could, that one of the ways you will know that these people are indwelt with the Holy Spirit is they will hold snakes and they will not be bitten. And so one of the ways that a very specific branch of Pentecostals for a while, but also snake handling was like, you got to go back in time. So like, we also, like, penicillin didn't exist. Like there's churches do things that you would now be like, well, why would you do that? And so Pentecostals, one of the ways that they demonstrated the power of the Holy Spirit is they were not afraid of, it's really about not being afraid, that God will take care of you. And so
they won't let you, if you do get bit, they won't let you take them to the hospital. And so the guy that we were learning about died.
Yeah.
Of course he died. Oh, that's horrible.
And
I'm sorry, I'm not judging.
can I say something, man? I feel like Christianity is just tanking down and down.
And what?
I mean, there's just so much that can be said. I don't want to think people to think like we're a bunch of people that have kind of lost our minds, but yeah, there. I mean, even from person to person within the same congregation, people have differences of beliefs and opinions, and I think, No, I mean that's just person to person, man. I mean, there's no way to get every single person to believe every single word that's written in the Bible the exact same way. And I think Jesus was a genius when he basically referred back to the golden rule, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so I think the entire Bible is hinged on that. Now that doesn't, for me, let me just talk about myself. For me, I don't think that means that I should stop there. What I think it means is that I am pursuing a marker that's off in the distance. And as long as I'm pursuing that and I'm, going after that and I'm honest with what I believe God has asked me to do, then I think I'm good. You know what I mean? And so I have to respect the fact that everybody is on that journey and everyone is in different places. And if I prejudge someone based on where they are today, someone else can do the exact same thing to me because there's somebody else that knows something that I don't. And so it's about providing grace for people to live in that, and so anyway, without getting into the weeds on those things, I just think that you do have differences. I think that the idea of Christianity, when it meets culture, changes, right? So when you go over into, and guys, I'm on this whole world history thing, so I'm trying to learn, change my language. I don't even like saying the Middle East anymore because I feel like that's a North American dominant way of explaining it.
Okay,
well,
let me pause it. Norman,
all right. I don't think you guys can see me.
Frozen.
refresh. Well, shoot. Okay.
I can hear you though. That's weird.
It's okay. I'm gonna fix
Yeah.
it.
Face though, he kind of looked like he was seeing the light, you know, like it was a religious experience.
Y'all, the rapture happened and we didn't get to go.
Dang it.
Just Norman. Only Norman got to come.
There you are. Okay, go ahead, Norman.
All right, guys. All right. Yeah. The basis of what I'm just saying is I think it's okay to have disagreements. And the more that I do a deep dive into the Bible, the more I do a deep dive into history, the less judgmental I am. I continue to speak on what I believe. It doesn't mean that I, don't hold to certain standards, but I try to be an influence with my life and let that speak for itself. I speak on my page. I speak up. People can see what I believe. But I don't do a whole lot of in your face when it comes to my beliefs in Christianity. I do talk with people one-on-one, but the amazing thing is some of the things I post gives me the opportunity to talk to people one-on-one. Now that I think it opens up, the floodgates for us to have dialogue. But my intentions, and I hope other Christians feel this, I know we all have different ministries, is not to just blast people, bash people, and be all judgmental willy-nilly, but to really just be led by the Holy Spirit, which that's a whole nother conversation, and how you deal with people, who you talk to in planting seeds and being intentional in that aspect.
I really agree with that. It's crazy. This conversation is really intriguing. We literally could talk about it for like 4 or 5 more hours. Something I want to touch on, and I'm going to touch on this, and then we're going to go to our final thoughts. But the reason I want to touch on this is because I would actually love to have this group of panelists come back and talk about what I'm about to speak on. I wanted to lead the conversation into basically how the tradition was, how things were set in motion, and what we're seeing today. We're seeing a rise in spirituality versus religion in a lot of people. They lean more towards choosing spiritual practices and not adhering to a certain set of religious values. And I kind of wanted to talk about whether that was good or bad and what it meant about us. When I practice Buddhism, which is not really considered a religion, it's a philosophy. And I was reading this book on the Dalai Lama, and he basically said, he thinks it's imperative for human health, social health, for us to have interreligious dialogue. He said it's imperative because he feels like there's things that we're missing from the other that we need to learn how to take care of each other as humans better. Not just as humans, as people, organisms, and beings. So I would really like to have us back and talk about that. And I just kind of want to throw it into our final thoughts for tonight. Basically, the final thought is take a moment, take your whatever we talked about today and what you want to leave with, what you're leaving with, and what you would want anyone who's watching to leave with. Does anyone want to go first?
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to start by saying that the one credential of mine that I didn't have you read is I have a graduate certificate in women's gender and sexuality studies. And so we were talking about J.K. Rowling, all this stuff was sort of formulating in my head, but it didn't really come out at the time we were talking about it. So I want to go back and just say that I think one of the things I find really frustrating about it is that she, says that she was saying these things as a feminist and that she was trying to like protect another woman. But the problem with that is the logics on which feminism is based, and of course feminism's like Christianity where there's tons of versions of it, but sort of generally speaking are the same logics that being transgendered is based on. If a woman says that she doesn't want to have to be a stay-at-home mom or something like that, and that's just like gender stereotyping, that women are better cooks or women are better at childcare or whatever, I mean, that's the same you're going down the path of gender as a construct, and that gender is not something that is tied to your biology, but is something that is created. And so I just find it very frustrating for people who want to like practice feminism but don't want to follow their own logics all the way through. And so that was just something that I wanted to sort of like be a takeaway. And as far as like the main topic, I just want to say that I think that you could debate forever whether or not the United States was founded as a Christian nation, what the intentions were and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the point now really is it helpful to base what we're doing now on Christianity? Because many, many people are trying very hard to get our laws to be based on the Bible. And is that something that whatever we were meant to be, we don't have to do what the forefathers and mothers said. I mean, that's how this government works. We get to make it be whatever we want it to be. So I think we really should be like thinking about who does it benefit and who does it not benefit, and why. The end.
That was awesome. Anyone else want to go next?
I can go next. So a couple of things I took away. One is I think my liberal inclinations mean that I'm going to raise my kids to know all of the things very early. And it was interesting to hear Norman talk about his kids, because I think it inclines me to be aware of a sensitivity and to be thoughtful in the sense that it is not only that I have the power to have kids that are going to know anything so they won't be surprised, but to also raise kids who are thoughtful, in that I do believe that you should be respectful of people's own beliefs, that you can approach them in a way that is thoughtful and it does not just impinge on other people. And I think in the world that I've lived in, where the norm has always been you have to make everybody think the way you do, and it did not come with that liberal thinking, I've always thought of it as like freeing to be able to just go with that world and like mess it up. And I think my goal was not to repeat what I've seen that was not healthy, but to teach my kids how to be better with what they are given, because I think that space can be occupied by lots of people with different values who choose to try to be respectful of each other. And so I think that it was insightful to come to, I mean, the goal of this conversation is that people talk from different places and be able to be informed and grow. I also looked it up, and Diamond and Silk are the name of the two women that I brought up that I couldn't think of, who used to be on Fox and who are crazy and are no longer on there. And although I've said all of those things and I do genuinely believe that I've enjoyed this and been grown, I also want to end on that I think Candace Owens is one of the worst people in the world. And that is it. I'm good ending on that. I think she's terrible. Amen.
Okay. Who would like to go next?
So what I took away from this panel discussion was everyone is pretty influenced by their experiences and just the things that they have come across, whether it's research or your jobs or your family life. And me coming from being a PK, and when I was a child, I had apostolic, Pentecostal, and Baptist influence, and I don't identify with either one of those today. It's, it's all about evolving and it's all about changing. And I think with our government, and even with me being an educator, seeing how different my students are, it's about also being sensitive to the fact that everyone is different and everyone does have different opinions based off of their experiences. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's a great thing that should be celebrated. And there should be more conversations like this. And I think if we do have more conversations like this, there will be change. There will be growth.
Awesome. Megan just short and succinct. You know what I'm saying? She get in and get out. All right, Norman.
Well, Duryea, kudos to you, man, for making this happen, for putting people who have different minds in the same space, because this is great. We all leave with something. If anything, to me, it was just reinforced the importance to listen, to learn, And I think Emily and well, everybody touched it on at some point, but really talk about dealing with situations as they come up. Not really, you may have a plan, you may have an idea, but just really be open to deal with what you have on the table when it happens. I wish we could have had more time to talk, but this is something just as from my Christian background, I'll say this. Christian people or people of the Christian faith go through trauma too. So I would just say, as you deal with people who are Christian or who of whatever faith, and they are avid about what their beliefs are, really dig deep into their the psyche of that person and figure out how they tick. And you know, you hear the words, but really see where the person's coming from to try your best to understand them. And I think we all should do that. We should try to look beneath the surface and understand people as best as we can.
Awesome. My final thoughts, just short and sweet. I just think that it's time that we do start an interreligious dialogue. Religion is something that, because we're so afraid of talking about it, whether it be to hurt people's feelings or because if to hear something that doesn't sound like what I believe, it's all excuses. Like, we're all people. We all believe what we believe. We can all respect what each other believes without believing it. I don't have to believe what you believe to respect that you believe it at all. And I love that you believe what you believe. I love that you're convicted. You have convictions. I love that, because I know, right? I know. I love that you have that strength within you to believe something, but to still be able to hear and listen and grow. That is what it means to be a human. Don't be blind. Don't be stubborn, you know? So take a chance to talk to somebody about religion and really hear them, okay? Having said that, I want to thank you all for another wonderful episode of Talk It Out, where we talk it out. Thank you to my wonderful panel. And remember, it's not always about who's right or who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard.